My name is Jane Hirsch, and I get to co-president with the Reverend Kathy Schmitz, who will be closing up this show at the end of our time together. We welcome you live, and we welcome those who are watching us live on Facebook as well. Once this program is over, you can also find us find this recording on our YouTube channel. If you would, please, too, if you haven't already, please silence your phone. May have to go check mine. And also, if you have extra open seats at your table, would you raise your hand just in case there are folks who do not yet have a seat? And let those folks who are in line for food see those hands so they know that there is an opportunity for you to sit down too, Kay Hudson. If you wish to join me to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I invite you to do so right now. I pledge allegiance to the flag Thank you. We have a lot of representation in the room today. I'd like to acknowledge all of our elected officials and the officially filed candidates. If you would like to introduce yourself and the part of our world that you represent, I invite you to come down to this mic to your right to introduce yourself. And while they're on their way, I'd like to ask that everyone hold their applause, please, until the very last introduction. Because we are what? We are nonpartisan. And you know what? That's actually a hallmark that makes our league so respected across the country. We are nonpartisan, and one of the minute ways that we could reinforce that is by withholding our applause until the very last candidate has spoken. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I wanted to share this story with you. Kay Hudson, Charlie Williams, and I were recently at the Winter Park City Commission to speak on a First Amendment issue. This morning, my neighbor yelled to me, "I don't think we align politically, but I appreciate what you said at the City Commission meeting." And I just smiled and said, "Thank you." So, shout out to the League and to the Peace and Justice Institute for helping train my tongue to not say, "We sure do not align with one another." I want to acknowledge and thank, too, our sponsors for their generous and very faithful support. Our bronze sponsor, Cynthia McKinnon. Yes.
You want them to introduce themselves?
I sure do, yes. And we will get to the sponsors afterwards. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Vanos, and I am a school board member for Orange County Public Schools.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Murphy. You might know me as your former Congresswoman. I am running for Orange County Mayor.
Okay. Remember, no applause. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mayor Angie Gardner with the Historic Town of Eatonville.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Jane Amon. I'm running for House District 37, which is the UCF district. Also covers Oviedo, Winter Park, and Geneva and Chuliota.
Hi, I'm Robin Dellinger. I'm a Seminole County School Board member.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Suzanne Pena. I am running for Orange County School Board District 3, which covers parts of Soto all the way down to Hunters Creek, parts of Conway. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Angie Gallo. I'm currently a school board member for District 1, which is on the east side. It also encompasses the UCF area, and I'm running for school board chair. Thank you.
Hello, I am Elizabeth Ingram, and I am running for Winter Park City Commissioner, seat 1.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Ayana Barrow, and I'm running for Orange County Judge. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sheila DeCiccio, the mayor of Winter Park, and a warm Winter Park welcome to everyone here. Thank you.
Good morning, League. I am Dr. Kelly Martinez-Sumrud. I am your Orange County District 5 Commissioner, proudly serving Maitland, College Park, Winter Park, downtown Orlando, Lake Pickett, UCF, Bithlo, all the way out to the Brevard County line, and I am grateful to be here to talk about this important issue. Thank you.
All right, we can do it all now. Oh,
I got one more. Hi, everyone. It is so great to be here. Representative Dr. Ana Villascamani, proudly serving District 42 in the Florida Legislature, and of course, running to be Orlando's next mayor in 2027.
all right. Woo-hoo. Did anyone notice a distinction among that group? All women. I don't know if men are fearful of the league. You're allowed to join men, you really are. But our time has come. That is very cool to see. And again, for our sponsors, for their generous and faithful support, we want to recognize them now. At the bronze level, Cynthia McKinnon, thank you very much. Our silver, and we will clap for all of them, and feel free, I don't think Cynthia is running for office or currently in an elected position. Our silver sponsors are Lynn and David Barrelsman. Our voting voices are Michelle Levy, Laurie and Richard Wack, and Charlie Williams. A new level of support, the Kindred Three, Joan Irwin, Sue Foreman, and Lee Rambo Kemp. And finally, our visionary sponsors, Jennifer and Phil Anderson. If you all would please stand so that we can recognize and thank you wholeheartedly. And if you're interested in becoming a sponsor, Lee Rambo, who's going to raise her hand in 1 seconds, would be delighted to talk to you. Also, we are so pleased to announce the $25,000 match was met. So game, set, match, am I right? Thank you to Phil and Jennifer Anderson for the challenge, for our committee chairs, and to everyone who gave so generously to support the League of Women Voters, Orange County. And on to our show. Though there has been explosive growth in the tax-funded voucher program, according to the Florida Policy Institute, nearly 83% of students in Florida attend public school. We'll dig into that number later. For nearly all of us, public education has touched our lives in some way. If you are a student in Orange County Public Schools, raise your hand. Shout out to the high school students here from Cypress Creek High School. Glad to have you all with us. If you ever attended a public school, raise your hand. If your children or grandchildren have attended public school, please raise your hand. And lastly, if you currently work or have worked in the public school system as a teacher or in another capacity, we want you to stand so that we may honor you. Thanks for doing that. And if one of you had one of my children, I'm really, really grateful to you, especially because they're off the payroll. Our moderator today is Beth Kassab, editor of the Winter Park Voice. Previously, you may remember that she was at the Orlando Sentinel for over 20 years. As co-author of the groundbreaking Orlando Sentinel series, Schools Without Rules, Beth is uniquely qualified to guide us through this discussion on diverted dollars. We are delighted to have her join us again as moderator. So please give a warm welcome to Beth Kassab.
Thank you all so much. It's really a treat to be here with you this afternoon, especially on this topic that is really near and dear to me and to, I think, so many of us in a growing way. So I want to start by introducing our panelists. We've got some really, really great panelists today. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tashanda Brown-Cannon. She's the Chief Academic Officer at OCPS since 2023. She has dedicated over 25 years serving the students of Orange County Public Schools, earlier as a turnaround principal at Tangelo Elementary, and later as Executive Area Director and Associate Superintendent. Thank you so much. Also joining us is Dr. Norín Dollard. She is a senior policy analyst with the Florida Policy Institute. She has more than 30 years of research and evaluation experience in behavioral health needs of children and families across child-serving systems. As director of the Kids Count Data Center, she leverages her experience to inform child and family policy with data. Next, we'd like to welcome Annie Martin. Annie is an investigative journalist for the Orlando Sentinel, and Annie had the good or bad fortune of working with me for many years. Along with Leslie Postal, we wrote the Schools Without Rules series, and she's gone on to do a whole lot of work since then. She previously worked for the Daytona Beach News Journal and the Battle Creek Enquirer in Michigan. Thank you, Annie, so much for being here. And also, last but not least, we have Stephanie Vanos. She was elected to the Orange County School Board for District 6 in 2024. She has advocated for pro-public education issues in Florida at the national level. And Stephanie has served on the OCPS Reapportionment Advisory Committee in 2021. She has been active in the community, serving in various capacities with local organizations, including as previous co-chair of this league's Education Committee. Thank you so much, Stephanie. All right, so I think a lot of you have been to Hot Topics before. Just like to give a reminder that there will be some time for Q&A for league members, so keep your questions in mind as we go along here. But I'd like to just start out by giving you a little overview. In the past 4 years, Florida has doubled spending on taxpayer-funded vouchers. That's about $4 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars, at considerable cost to our public schools. In addition, declining birth rates means smaller numbers of students in the future. As more students use vouchers to attend private schools, public schools are scrambling. Orange County Public Schools estimate losing more than 3,000 students this academic school year, which will result in a funding loss of almost $28 million and require cutbacks in all departments. And it's not just Florida. Arizona has closed about 17 public schools in the past year due to the state's expanded voucher program and changing demographics. And we are here today to talk about this program, how Florida taxpayer dollars are being diverted from our public schools to private voucher schools and homeschools, which face little accountability or oversight, and also how this affects our students, teachers, and the larger community. So that's a lot to get to, so we're going to be along for the ride here, and I think it's going to be a good one, because I do like to remind people that when we visited, we set about to visit a bunch of these schools back in 2017 to start with, and when I say these schools, I'm talking about voucher schools. And boy, that's a really generic term when you think about the buildings and places that are included in that. There was everything from large campuses, well-equipped with amenities, to children that were being kept in a small room in a little shopping plaza without even a playground or lunch. So we're going to get to all of that. And let's talk first about some definitions for those of you who might be a little newer to this topic. What are taxpayer-funded vouchers? If we could go first to Dr. Dollard or Member Vanos.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon. So Florida has two ways that vouchers are funded. One are the Family Empowerment Scholarships, and that is a euphemism. No one has earned these. So we're not going to use that word except using the formal title. But the Family Empowerment Scholarships are funded from general revenue funds for education. So you pay your sales tax, it goes to the government, and our state government allocates it to education and healthcare and so on. And from the education dollars, the Florida Education Finance Program, if we're getting weedy, I'll try to not to do that. From those dollars, this is where vouchers are being diverted to private and homeschooled students. We also have something called the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship, which sometimes sneaks under the radar because those funds are actually diverted from ever getting to the general revenue, things so we could run our government, run our communities. The Florida Tax Credit Scholarships also fund the Personalized Education Program, which are vouchers for homeschool students. All of these students, all of these vouchers, regardless of type, are funded at the same level that per pupil funding is that goes to school districts.
Yeah, so just to summarize, taxpayer-funded vouchers is public tax dollars that are going to private schools or to homeschooling, allegedly. And this language is really important to note. Again, you may hear this referred to as a scholarship, and that is a term that is purposely used to obfuscate what the true nature of this voucher. It is taxpayer money going into private systems in a way that is not accountable and is not transparent at all to the public.
So Stephanie, we heard some big numbers at the top. The current figure is $4 billion with a B that funds these sort of assortment of voucher programs that now exist. But what does that mean in terms of the amount of money actually diverted from public schools?
Well, so in Orange County, this year we're expecting about $211 million of education funding that could be invested in our public schools, but is instead being diverted into this taxpayer-funded voucher program. And I went back and looked at some numbers. Over the past 6 years, this is 6 years, there has been a 728% increase in the amount of money that is going to these private, unaccountable, non-transparent entities. And this $211 million for Orange County also doesn't include an additional $60 million that the state supplements to the taxpayer-funded voucher program to make up for discretionary millage. So really we are losing about $271 million, Orange County alone, to our public schools, to this private shadow system.
So Dr. Brown-Cannon, if we could go to you for a moment. OCPS has remained committed to educational programs, support services, a lot of programs that the public schools provide, even in the face of these cuts. But your district is also having to make some tough choices. What is being lost right now?
Good afternoon, everyone. To begin with, our vision in Orange County Public Schools is to ensure that every student graduates prepared and inspired for a thriving future. And in order to be able to do that, we need to see an increase in funds. When we have a reduction in our students, that equates to a reduction in teachers. It equates to not only a reduction in teachers, but also our departments were tasked with a 2% decrease.
And as these cuts are being made and choices are going to be made across this year and next, how difficult will it be to restore some of these programs potentially in the future if it comes to that?
So many of the teaching positions that were reduced were our unique teaching positions. So positions such as our business ed positions, art positions. So in the future, potentially we could have difficulties replacing those teachers that we've lost. Our HR department did a phenomenal job this summer in transferring teachers that were non-reappointed due to a decline in enrollment to our schools that experienced an increase in enrollment. So we are doing all that we can do in Orange County Public Schools to ensure that our students are receiving a highly qualified education every day and that we have a positive culture and climate for all of our faculty and staff.
Thank you. Annie, if we could go to you for a second. You were part of the team that at the Sentinel that looked at schools without rules, and wondering if you could help us understand a little bit about what you found. What did that series uncover?
Yeah, you touched on this in your opening, but when we did the 2017 series, and actually since then, we've continued to tour schools that take vouchers in the Orlando area. And we've seen a really wide range of types of schools represented in this group. There are some schools that are well established. They've been around for many years. They had parents paying tuition for their children to attend well before the voucher money was ever available. And a lot of those campuses are pretty comparable to what you might find in a public school. The teachers have college degrees. The textbooks and the curriculum materials are pretty similar to what you might find in a public school, except for the fact that many of them are religious, but other than that, I think it's probably pretty comparable to what you would find in most public schools here. And then there is another sort of subset of schools that take voucher money that are quite different from what you'd find in public schools. These are schools that are set up in strip malls or in other locations where you wouldn't expect to find a school. Sometimes they're in portables outside a church or in other types of facilities that would be very different from a public school. And a lot of these, they don't have the kinds of things you would find in our public school system. They don't have science labs. They don't have a gymnasium. They don't have a lunchroom, for instance. And in some of these schools, the qualifications for teachers are quite different from public schools as well. They may not require teachers to have a college degree. We've actually even found schools where there were teachers who didn't have a high school diploma. And in some of these classrooms, the kids, and we're talking elementary age kids, are sitting in cubicles for the better part of their school day filling out workbooks instead of getting live instruction from a teacher. So it's quite different from what you would find in the public school system. And so I think when we talk about voucher schools, it's important to keep in mind that this is a really wide range of types of campuses and instruction that we're talking about. And I might add, my colleagues and I have toured dozens of these schools since 2017 when we first did our Schools Without Rules series. And in a large, I would say in the majority of these cases, we showed up unannounced. We just showed up on campus and asked to speak with the principal and asked for a tour. There were other cases where we called ahead and let them know that we'd like to, schedule a tour and talk to somebody. So in most cases, I think we were getting, they weren't putting on a show for us. We were getting a good, example of what their daily class experience was like.
And could you give us a little bit of insight into some of those places? What were some of the things that concerned you most? And I mean, I'll just chime in that one thing I think we all found really kind of raised our eyebrows was the number of schools that were forging their fire and health inspections back in 2017. Those inspections were one of the very, very short list of things that the schools were actually required to turn into the state. The state does not inspect these schools. So just wondering if you could expand on that.
Well, as a reporter, I make a lot of public records requests to local school districts and other public entities, and there is a lot of information that's available about public schools. You can find a teacher's personnel file, you can find test scores, you can find graduation rates. It's pretty transparent if you want to know what's going on in your local public school. And when you're talking about schools that are private, they don't have to share those things with you. You can call them up and ask them, you know, what are your qualifications? What do you require of teachers to work here? Do you require college degrees? Or, you know, what are your graduation requirements? What courses do students have to pass in order to graduate? Or even things simple like, what kind of textbooks do you use? What kind of curriculum materials do you use? And they don't have to tell you that. And as a reporter, it's the differences between what you can find out about your public school versus what you can find out about a private school, even one that's taking millions in public dollars, is pretty stark.
Yeah, thank you. So considering some of those observations, why do parents choose these private schools over their neighborhood public school or another public school that might be available to them? What do you hear from those families?
Well, I think there are a really wide range of reasons why people choose private schools. I think in some cases, about 3/4 of the students who attend private schools on vouchers in this state are attending religious schools. So I think a faith-based education is something that a lot of parents seek out. And these are mostly Christian schools. There are other faiths represented, but these are largely Christian schools that families are choosing for their children. But I also think, you know, there are frustrations with the public school system. There are parents who don't like the standardized testing in the public school system. And even though their child may have to take tests at the private school, I think they feel like the emphasis on testing is maybe not as strong in the private schools, or there's at least that perception. I think that you know, there are parents who feel like their kids had issues with bullying, or you know, other you know, they had a teacher they didn't like in the public school system, or they had, you know, other kinds of frustrations with their child's particular experience in their public school. But I also think that there's sort of a perception that private school is better. You know, it was sort of this, I don't know, I think for better or for worse, and I don't think this is necessarily true, but people envision it as being this sort of elite experience that people pay for. And, you know, it's a place where, you know, kids wear uniforms and there's these pristine campuses and the standards are higher. And I think that there is a subset of parents who, you know, still envision that when they hear private school, and that's what they want for their children.
Yeah, and I remember too, if I can just add, that a lot of parents thought that because the state was sending the money to these schools, that they were somehow passing a basic litmus test. And that's simply not true.
Yeah, I think parents are some parents, I should say, are under the impression that the state is reviewing the curriculum materials, or you know, reviewing teacher qualifications, or making sure that, you know, all teachers have certification like they would in public schools. And as you said, that's not correct.
Yeah. And so, Dr. Brown-Cannon and Stephanie, as representatives of OCPS, what are you hearing from parents? And Annie touched on the fact that many of the schools are religious. If one of you could also address like the number of schools that are religious in that program.
Yeah, sure, I can speak to that. There are about 60% of the schools that receive taxpayer money are religious schools, and 78.8% of these schools that receive public funds are not accredited. So there's no accreditation, there's no one watching over these schools. And, you know, to go to your point, I think a lot of parents don't know. I think, you know, there are the vast majority of families who are taking these taxpayer-funded vouchers were already in private school. And then a big part we're starting in kindergarten. So I think there's about 13.1% of people taking taxpayer-funded vouchers actually came from public school. So honestly, they don't even know what questions to ask. They don't even know what's supposed to be offered in a school. Again, I think they have this idea in their mind of what a prestigious private school is, and they want that for their child, and they see this private school has uniforms, and that's attractive. And they go in, they don't know what to ask, they really don't know what to look for, there's no information given to them. And I think that is a huge, you know, part of the reason why people are choosing these. There's, again, you know, Annie brought up the point that everything in your public school is really, it's public information. And so I think one of the ways that we can make sure our families and our communities understand what is happening in these schools is to pass legislation to make these schools subject to our sunshine laws, make these schools subject to our open records laws. We deserve to know what is happening in these schools that are receiving our money.
Dr. Dollard, I wonder if you could talk about how some of the lobbying groups have contributed to the growth, both in the faith-based and the non-faith-based voucher schools?
Yes, there's been tremendous pressure from lobbyists for years to increasingly privatize our public education dollars. Vouchers are not new in the state of Florida. We've had them since the Jeb Bush's administration as governor. And what has happened is they add incrementally. Oh, we're going to add, we're going to focus on children low economic status. We're going to focus on, we're going to add children with disabilities. And so it was very tiny increments until at last 2 years ago, they've vastly expanded this. During that time in the legislature, and Stephanie and I spent a lot of time there that spring, it was quite evident how much the heavy presence at our American Federation for Children, there were busloads of folks who were who attended those hearings in support of vouchers. There are certainly religious groups who do favor and lobby hard in support of vouchers. So not a new phenomenon and very well funded and very present.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I just add
yes,
in?
Of course.
And I think it is important to note, some parents want their child to have a religious education, and I get it. That makes sense to me. But it should not be funded with taxpayer money. And, when we talk about the religious lobby, I almost even get it, right? If money is out there, you're going to try to get it. And for an individual family, if money is out there, you're going to try to get it. I don't want to blame or shame an individual for making that choice, or even necessarily, a school for trying to fight for that money. The people that we need to blame are the lawmakers who are responsible for being fiscally responsible, for using our taxpayer money in a transparent way. Those are the people that need to be blamed for this, and those are the people that we need to be talking to and advocating for and pushing legislation that people across all political ideologies can agree with. Public money should stay in public schools, and we should know how that money is spent.
So, Dr. Brown-Cannon, and I'll add too, once the money goes to the private school, there's really no clear way to track if that money is being spent on a home for the owners or education materials for the classroom. And we found a number of instances like that. So, Dr. Brown-Cannon, if you could tell us a little bit about, okay, so what do public schools contribute to the community? I think we can all name, a lot of things, but tell us a little bit about what your messaging is in this climate.
Public schools is the heartbeat of our community. It is the one system where we can ensure that all of our students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, their religion, their race, that they receive a high-quality education, that they have equitable access to be successful each and every day. Our North Star in Orange County Public Schools is our portrait of a graduate. We partnered with community members. We partnered with our parents as well as our students. We asked them, what are the traits of a graduate? What does that look like to be a successful graduate in Orange County Public Schools? And so we created that portrait of a graduate. So we are not only ensuring that our students are academically advanced, but we are ensuring that we are creating leaders, that our students graduate, that they have communication skills, that they are biliterate, and that they are welcoming and appreciative of diverse groups. And so, in essence, we thrive to ensure that all of our students are productive citizens.
Thank you. So, want to know, proponents of vouchers say they give parents and families more choices and force public schools to compete at a much higher level than they would otherwise have to. But of course, the opponents say that's not entirely true. I'm wondering, one of you on the panel would like to respond to that. How do you kind of characterize those arguments, and how do we suss out what's real and not real there?
I'm happy to start, and I know there's other comments that will be added. First of all, parental choice is an illusion when it comes to these vouchers. There is some understanding that if I get a voucher, it's going to cover the full tuition, which is not the case. You get whatever the per pupil funding is for your student. That's what you get. The other concept of choice that's illusory is that parents don't choose private schools. Private schools choose students. They are under no obligation to take every student to accommodate the needs of all of their students in the ways that public schools are. And Annie's talked about what she and Deb have found in their visiting of schools. There is this concept that if I pay for it, it is better, it's superior. And so I think that choice is just not even an accurate word. So.
Yeah, and I would also add that 87% of Florida families choose public schools, and public school parents like public school choices. And so I want to see this money supporting the choice of most of the parents in the state of Florida. And we have great templates within our public schools for great choices, whether it's magnet schools, whether it's special programs. We know what works in schools, and the real shame is not just the positions that have been lost or we have not been able to pursue because we don't have the funding for it.
Thank you. So let's see if I could go back to Stephanie or Dr. Brown-Cannon. Why has Florida failed over the past 20 years in the way there?
Well, that's a great question. I would say the overarching reason that they've not kept pace is because this is a state that does not value public education. I mean, period. It just doesn't. We are diverse. The required local effort, the millage rates have been decreased by 2.5 mills in the last 15 years. So our operating budget has lost $500 million here in Orange County because $1 billion loss to our capital budget. So and those rates are determined by the state legislature. So they determine what the rates are. So even though our property values have increased, the state has not allowed our schools to collect taxes in the same way that the rates have increased. So, why are they doing this? Again, it's not valued. I think it's for political gain, right? They can say they cut taxes and they can stay in power. And I think until we elect people who prioritize public education, we're not going to see a change.
So what are public schools doing to fight back? What would you tell a parent who is skeptical about public school and whether their child can succeed there?
I would say that educators are historically humbled. We have to write the narrative and we have to tell our own story. We cannot allow others to tell our story. We have to brag about our AP achievements in Orange County Public Schools. The fact that 5,000 of our students received a college credit last year. We have to talk about the fact that 45 of our elementary schools offer orchestra along with our secondary schools. We have to talk about the fact that our students are engaged in dual enrollment, and we have to talk about the fact that we have been in A district for 2 consecutive years. But not just that. We provide services that benefit the whole child. We ensure that our students and parents have mental health resources. We provide transportation. All of our students receive free lunch. And more importantly, we have the best teachers, the best administrators, the best superintendent, and the best school board in all of the United States.
And others can feel free to chime in here, but the New York Times recently documented in a story, I think it was just last week, how Orange County in particular is trying to get that message out to parents and families. How are you doing that?
We have a phenomenal marketing team. Scott Howard in the Mondays with Maria. If you have not watched our superintendent on Mondays with Maria's, we encourage you to do so. Also, we have a pocket guide, which I brought limited number of copies with me. We encourage you to pick one of those up. But it really is our students and our families. When we talk to our students in our superintendent town hall meetings, when we talk to our parents in our community meetings, they love their public schools. So we need our community members to stand up and talk about the wonderful things that are happening in Orange County.
And I would add to that, full disclosure, I am the parent of an IB graduate from a public school who entered the University of Florida as a second semester sophomore. So it's the things that our public schools can do is quite remarkable. The other thing that I would add to that has a little more base beyond my personal experience is that families that are taking these vouchers are demanding schools to supply AP, IB, specialized credits, because they know the public schools are able to offer this high quality, that their instructors are of the caliber that is qualified to teach advanced coursework. And so I think that demand itself speaks volumes to the incredible work that our public schools do in ensuring success for all of our students.
Thank you. So let's get into a little bit about how the money works, because we've heard a lot of big figures again. So what is Step Up for Students, and how does that organization operate? What does it mean for these voucher programs? Annie or Norín?
Well, Step Up for Students is a nonprofit organization that basically exists to administer this program. And so a family that decides they want a scholarship, they apply to Step Up. And it used to be that there was either an income requirement that they had to meet, or they had to show that their child had a disability that would qualify them to receive this money. And it has become very ingrained with this program. When you talk to families about the vouchers, they don't call it a voucher, they don't call it a state tax dollar funded voucher, they call it the Step Up Scholarship. And school leaders do as well. So they've become very ingrained in the operations of this program. And Step Up takes or can take up to 3% of the value of each voucher that they administer. So they are, I don't want to say profiting, but the more vouchers that go to families, the more money Step Up gets as a result of that.
Yes. And did anyone else want to chime in, or?
Step Up is one of the largest charities. If you look on Charity Navigator, it's an enormous operation, and it takes 3% right off the top for administering the vouchers. So I guess that just underscores Annie's point. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
And they have requested to get a higher fee in the last session, so I expect that to come back as well.
Sure. Yeah, they've grown tremendously over the past few years and have existed for a really long time. Pretty much monopolized the market in Florida for doling out these vouchers, although I believe there is another organization or two that exists. Although meanwhile, Step Up has expanded to other states and is operating in other states as well that have adopted either all or part of Florida's model.
And there is going to be a federal tax credit voucher beginning in 2027, and they will be entitled, they call them scholarship governing organizations, a little different when we refer to them here, but they'll be able to charge up to 10% off the top. So it's definitely, and yes, they have the majority share in Florida. There is a small AAA foundation that also administers these vouchers, but their market share is less than 10%.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, in this climate, what do we think is the future of our public schools in Florida? Where do you all see this going? And maybe we could just start with Stephanie and come down the line here.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the state, and I'll just stick with the funding piece of this, because there's lots of other things to talk about, but with the funding piece, I know there have been efforts to cut back on property taxes. Our schools are funded, 53% of our funding comes from the local property tax, so that will be a huge hit to our schools. But I think if we want to talk about the future, I think as people start to see what's happening, they are going to start to push back. Like has been said here, our public schools provide the best education, hands down. Our teachers are the best. Our students have the most opportunities. And it's interesting, a lot of these students in the taxpayer-funded voucher program or homeschooling, the parents now realize, well, they want to be able to take the AP chemistry class at the public high school. And they want to be able to take the AP calculus class at the public high school. So I think people are realizing that education is actually pretty hard. And if you want to offer students a wide variety of courses, your best option is in the public school system. And I think as people hear the word choice, and they like that word, but as they start to understand what that choice actually means and how it is pulling money from our public education system, they're starting to stand up, and I think they're starting to fight back, and I think they're starting to demand more of the lawmakers. And I also think lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, and I want to shout out here, we have amazing representation here. Representative Anna Escamani, Dr. Anna Escamani, is always speaking out and protecting our public tax funds and speaking out against this taxpayer-funded voucher system, so thank you. But I do think there are other lawmakers that have started to take notice, that we do not have a good grasp on where these students are. This year, the Department of Education has essentially lost 25,000 students, where they've paid the voucher, but they've been educated in our public schools, and our public schools haven't received funding for educating those students. I think people are starting to recognize that this is unsustainable, and they understand that there needs to be, at a minimum, starting with more accountability and transparency. So I think that the pendulum will start to swing back. I am an optimist, though, so hopefully I'm right. But I do think as more people start to understand what's happening, we will start to have pushback, grassroots pushback, and I think that will be essential to just continuing having strong public schools, and which contributes to having strong communities.
Yeah, Annie.
I think the majority of the families will continue to choose public schools for their children. I think Stephanie said about 87% of families still choose public schools for their kids, and I think that will likely continue. I do think among parents who choose private schools, we might see a two-tiered system where parents who have money and can pay tuition in excess of the $8,000 that the voucher provides might choose some of the higher end, more well-established private schools that have some of the things that we think of when we think of private campuses, nice academic facilities, beautiful athletic fields, that kind of thing. And I also wanted to note, because I meant to mention this earlier, but I forgot, private schools do not have to accept the voucher, and many of the schools in our area that we think of as being some of the well-established elite schools like Lake Highland Prep and Trinity Prep, they do not accept the voucher. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well, because I think when people hear private school, that's kind of what they think of. And then I also think, going back to the two-tiered system, I think that we might see a subset of schools, and I think we already see this to some extent, of schools that charge $8,000 or whatever the value of the voucher is, and it sort of exists to fill those seats with parents who can't pay anything beyond what the voucher pays for. And I think that those schools might not hire teachers that have the kind of credentials that you would see in public schools, or be able to offer the types of instruction or curriculum materials that you might see in the public schools. And I think those might be the types of campuses where you might walk in and see kids working in cubicles, working on workbooks all day. So I think that among the private schools, we'll start to see sort of a two-tier system emerge even more than we do today.
And Annie, I just want to note, Annie and I do have a little party trick, and it's the only time my children ever thought I was cool, which is that one of our stories was featured a couple years back on John Oliver's Last Week Tonight. And I want to, Annie, because you were talking about some of the disparities and the quality offered, can you tell us a little bit about what that story found? Give us a little flavor there.
Right, we found that there are schools, and I think the next question is going to be, well, how many schools teach us? But we don't know, because there's really no way for us to find out. But there are schools that take vouchers that teach things that are well outside mainstream academia, like dinosaurs and humans were on Earth at the same time, or they teach creationism in biology class. They teach history in a very different way than the public schools would. They sort of downplay some of the accomplishments and some of the importance of things during the civil rights era, that kind of thing. They downplay the horrors of slavery in our country. So the education that kids are getting in some of these schools is, the academic materials they're seeing are quite different than what they would see in the public schools.
So, and thank you, Dr. Dollard, if you could give us a sense of kind of what you see coming ahead of us.
Yes, thank you. I agree 100% with Member Vanos. The property tax, the threats to reduce or eliminate are absolutely scary for public schools, and so I encourage you all to stay on top of that. I do think that more than ever, voters are realizing what is actually happening with our public education budget, and I think that this past session, parents were absolutely galvanized against proposed cuts to advanced placement and other advanced coursework and career and technical degrees, and they flooded the legislature and were at least mostly victorious in that. So I think that folks are starting to connect the dots, which I think is amazing. I do want to say there is a significant and long-term underinvestment in public education from our state legislators, present company accepted. But I do also know that our voters care very much. And if you look to last November, there were 11 referenda where voters were voting for their public schools. They chose to tax themselves, whether through sales tax or through their property millage, to say, yes, we believe investing in our schools. So there's a disconnect there locally versus the state. And then I would just close by saying that what we absolutely need is accountability for those tax dollars that are being diverted to private schools and to homeschool students. And that has to continue to be at the forefront of our work. Thank you.
Yes.
I believe that the outlook on public education is very bright. We have this thing in education where we say that data is our reality. I believe that the success of our graduates will continue to deepen the commitment and the belief in public education. I think that we'll continue to have a conversation around choice, but let's talk about the choice options within public schools. Choice around flexible scheduling, choice around standardized assessments. And I think that if we are committed to our students, that we will have a stronger system.
And if we could stick with you for a moment, what is something members here can do and others out in the community can do if they would like to make a difference on this issue?
We encourage you to contact your elected officials. We believe in our employees, and our board has said that salaries is a priority. So please contact your elected officials. We're always looking for volunteers. We have a Read to Succeed program where we're looking for mentors to come in and read with our primary students. And we're always listening for feedback, and we are receptive. If we're doing something extremely well, please email our board members, our superintendents. I should have asked it. Is that okay? Not sure. No. But please send positive comments about what it is that we're doing well. And if you see an opportunity for improvement, please let us know. We are listening and making adjustments.
And same question, I'd like to go down the panel before we open up to questions from all of you. What is something that the average run-of-the-mill person can do?
There are a number of great family advocacy organizations around the state. The League, full also disclosure, when I'm off duty, I am a League of Women Voters member in Hillsborough County. And so get connected with those advocacy groups. You don't have to do a huge thing. It could be a small thing. Write an email, make a phone call, invite your doubtful friends over for dinner and have a conversation. It's really going to be a person-to-person fight to protect public education, and I do 100% agree. If you love your public schools, let people know. Put it on your social. Let your school board know, your administrators, your principal, whomever. It doesn't have to be a heavy lift. I know this is a group of, I'm preaching to the choir here perhaps, but it is easy to get engaged, and there's lots of folks who can help you do that.
Annie, as a journalist, what's something that you see out there for folks to potentially do?
If you see something that you think is newsworthy, let us know, of course. But also share our work with your friends, neighbors, family members, and encourage folks to subscribe to the paper. I still believe very strongly in the work that we do, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't.
Yeah. I just absolutely have to echo that. We were really the only ones taking a look at that issue in 2017, and you all have continued to do that. And so that work is just so important. We probably wouldn't be having this conversation without some of that work. So please support your local journalists. Sign up for the free emails at Winter Park Voice. Subscribe to the Orlando Sentinel. And don't forget about Judith at Central Florida Public Media. It's just all so very important, the work that a lot of people in this room are doing. And Stephanie, please, if you could chime in, and then we're going to get to questions.
Yeah, I just want to echo that again. People don't know if people aren't reporting. That's just the reality. So thank you for the work that you have been doing. Public media, and Orlando Sentinel especially. I echo everything else everyone said up here, so I'll just add something different, which is, we can talk policy until we're blue in the face, and if you've heard my campaign speech, I can do that. But if we want a change, we need to elect the right people. That's just all it is. And so whatever that looks like for you, there are many ways. When there's a candidate that's a pro-public education candidate at every level in our government, you can, get my sign here, you can donate money, you can knock doors, you can host events, you can write postcards, you can volunteer to help on the campaign. There is a place for you on every campaign. And I promise you that if we can elect more of the right people in our state legislature, in our federal government, locally, that is what we need to do to make sure that public education has the funding that it needs.
Thank you. So at this time, we are going to open up the forum to league members to ask questions. Gina Hall is at the mic to my left, and she's going to help out with questions. Please raise your hand if you would rather a microphone be brought to you. Just let us know, and someone can do that. Gina, go ahead.
Thanks, Beth. We have about 10 minutes for questions. So members can come up and we'll take the full 10 minutes to ask questions. Keep your remarks in the form of a question, please. And they let me hold the mic, so I'm going to keep it. Charlie.
Thank you, panel, and thank you, journalists. Andy Martin, it's good to meet you. People assume that the private schools have public records requirements and probably an audit requirement. You would think with $4 billion being spent, that would be audited. Instead of going to counties and cities, you would think the governor might send his Doge team to where we're spending $4 billion. Does it take legislation to be proposed that an audit be conducted? There's some accountability, as you mentioned. Thank you.
Well, I do want to clarify, schools that receive a certain amount of money each year, and I don't remember the dollar figure, do have to submit an audit to the state. However, I've looked at these reports before, and the amount of information there and the detail required is pretty minimal compared to what you could get for, say, your local public school district. But other than that, I think lawmakers could require schools to operate in a more transparent way. They could require that, say, personnel files or even a list of who is working at these schools be public record, or require schools to disclose to the public what textbooks or curriculum materials they are using. And there's no such requirement right now.
And I will just also add to that, I think that is a great point. And again, this session, I am going to be pushing to ensure, to make a law that, every private entity that is receiving our, taxpayer funds for schools are subject to sunshine laws and open public records requests as well.
And I will say as well, if I can add, it wasn't unusual for these schools to receive large amounts of money and then shut down very suddenly. So that's something we found at that time. So again, yes, there are some auditing requirements, some basic numbers are submitted. How much oversight that's really getting seems really unclear to me, and especially when we saw schools that just one day would shutter their doors.
David Bottomley, 50-year resident in Orange County. I have a question for you. Since we're talking a lot about funding, my question is, have you explored actively putting solar arrays on the schools? There is one at Waterford Elementary, but it's in kind of disrepair. I have seen examples on Facebook where they have made money in surplus. And I have talked to the OCPS about it, but it hasn't really been actively pursued. Is the OCPS going to pursue more sustainable funding like solar arrays?
That would be a question I would need to take back to Rory, our Chief Facilities Officer, to be able to provide you with a response.
And if I could just add to that, in the HR 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill, there were additional restrictions or elimination of funding for solar arrays. I would refer you also, my colleague Ethan Fry, at floridapolicy.org, we have been doing some writing on the effects of that, including effects on schools, on supporting. Historically, there's been funds to support school buses, converting to electric and that sort of thing. So you can reach out to me and I can be more helpful in connecting you if you want more information on that, on the general, not
Okay, this
district.
was just on the facilities level, not the transportation level. And yes, I have cards.
Yes, my question is the allocation for voucher students the same as it is for public school students?
Yes, exactly the same.
Hi, my name is Dawn Stewart, and I've been an active advocate for the last 35 legislative sessions. My question is, do we market enough? When we talk to legislators, they want to know the return of investment, the ROI. Are we really letting them know what our ROI is, and ask them the question, what is the voucher ROI come? Since we were talking earlier that it's not transparent. And yes, we can still make a difference. I'm not, anyway, I think we need to ask the question and make it more marketable more on the ROI, speak their speak. Because they will say to you, but the parent has the choice. And that was addressed earlier. So, but thank you for everything you have done.
Thank you for your advocacy for all of these years for this as well.
I'm happy to say we have a student from Cypress Creek High School. We have a number of students from Cypress Creek High School, so we welcome them, and she is a member. So, Zoe, your question.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Zoe Salai and I'm an international baccalaureate student at Cypress Creek High School. And we recently, in May, we got news that the program was going to be phased out of our high school after our class graduates. And I would like to ask, what is the decision process or justification for phasing out high achieving and community impact programs like this?
Good afternoon. I appreciate the question. There was a decline in interest in the program at Cypress Creek High School. The incoming freshmen, only 21 of the students indicated that they wanted to continue with the IB route. The current students that are there, the 11th and 12th grade students, will continue until they graduate. However, we do have 2 additional magnet schools within the district that do offer IB.
I have to follow that. Victor Colazzo, I've been a member since 2017, and I'm an additions volunteer, even though I don't have any children for the last 20 years in the system. You talked about the failed schools, and my question is, what program do we have to recover those students that may have gone to one of these schools that has failed mid-year? And I just wanted to know, I am old school, I read my paper every morning on my front porch, so support our...
For our students that return to us that are significantly below grade level, we provide Tier 3 instruction for them. That means that our teacher provides instruction to everyone, Tier 1 instruction in whole group. We also have small group instruction. For students that need additional support, they go with FBS, our foundational basic skills class, and also they have the option, if the parents would like to sign a PE waiver, they also have the option in lieu of going to PE, they can also receive additional supports there.
Yes, my question has to do with, thank you, Susan Adams, proud member of the League Education Committee in Orange County and the State League Education Committee. And my question is, in the interest of full disclosure of our taxpayer dollars that are being deferred, I'd like to know if anyone can discuss the personalized education program expenditures, how that money is being spent. I'm pretty sure Norín knows. Thank you.
That's an excellent question, and it very much feeds into this conversation about accountability. Those families of things, but I personally have done some record requests, maybe Annie has too, to try to get hold of those data of exactly what those expenditures are, so that there is there wasn't a request from the Tampa Bay Times to get those data, but they were a few years, like 2 years old, was all that was released. So I wish I had a better answer for that, but without the kind of traditional reporting requirements, we are not getting those data.
Okay, we have time for one last question. Yeah.
Thank you. Judy Hayes, longtime friend of the pod. I'm also a member of the Education Committee. And my concern as the parent of a high school senior is college readiness. And what does that look like after all of these years of underfunded public education? I have a kid who has sucked the marrow out of his public school education experience, but we've been touring the country. We've been to probably half of the top 20 universities, and it seems to me that our kids are woefully unprepared for college outside of Florida. And when you couple that with the governor's move to change the accrediting body for state universities, defund the public universities, introduce the CLT as an alternative to the SAT and the ACT, are we facing a future where our best and brightest students aren't going to be able to get out of the state, and then
what does that look like for college readiness for our top learners who aren't going to get into schools outside of the state of Florida as a result of the underfunding? Sorry, didn't mean to bring everybody down.
In recent years, we have seen an increase in students taking Cambridge ACE, our AP courses, as well as IB, students in grades middle school and above. And so we are hearing that our students are able to compete not only within the state of Florida, but outside of the state of Florida as well. But if you have additional concerns, I can talk with you afterwards and ensure that you have my communication information.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, and I'm really proud of the increased numbers we've had this year of our students that are taking advanced classes. But in just personally talking to students and hearing their conversations with students in other states, there's a big difference in students who go to public schools in other states versus students who go to public schools in our state. The variety of AP classes that they have available to them is different, and it is different when your per pupil funding is thousands of dollars more in a different state.
Thanks to all our questionnaires. I'm going to turn it back over to Beth.
Yes, thank you so much. Those were some really, really excellent questions, and I'm sorry we don't have time to get to more. I do have to hand our program back over, but first, I really want to thank all 4 of these panelists for being here. Thank you so much. All right, and we are going to have a couple more announcements. Please stay seated from Co-President Reverend Kathy Schmitz. Thank you.
All right, I'll make this quick. We have a lot going on. I want to thank our moderator, Beth Kassab, and our panelists who have schooled us on the important challenges in our Florida education landscape. I hope you learned something new and will commit or recommit to supporting them. The League of Women Voters US says in their policy statements, a quality public education is essential for a strong, viable, and sustainable democratic society and is a civil right. So we have a few calls to action and reminders of upcoming events. There are flyers on your table with 2 QR codes on them. One will help you connect with our education committee, the important work that they are doing, and also you can join them on some advocacy visits to our legislators. You don't have to do that alone. There's also a QR code for some additional facts and figures, so please do check that out. Call and email your legislators regularly. Read and share our new weekly newsletter. Follow our social media. Comment, like, share. Follow our efforts as a nonprofit organization and volunteer your time at our website at lwvoc.org volunteering. We have a couple of upcoming events. The DEIA Social Justice Book Club will meet August 20th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. And we have a special election. How many people know if you're voting in this special election or not? Okay, make sure you know whether you should be. Senate District 15 and State Representative District 40. The registration deadline has passed, but there's still time for vote by mail. That's August 21st at 5 p.m. Election day is September 2nd. Couple things to do right now as you are leaving. One, visit the tables in our lobby. Next door, I'm told there is a very informative Holocaust Memorial Museum exhibit. Winter Park is one of 50 libraries nationally that has this exhibit that talks about the American response to Nazism and genocide in the 1930s and 40s. And you know that thing they say about learning from history? Here is your chance. Also, hot topics. Those of you who want to continue this conversation, we have hot topics overtime today, led by Education Committee Co-Chair Scott Huttenstein. It is from 1:15 to 2, and it's upstairs in the meeting room, up here. So you go around behind this wall, you'll find stairs and an elevator. I'll just tell you, the stairs are deceivingly long. right around the corner here. And as part of overtime, we'll be hearing more from the students at Cypress Creek High School who will discuss the effects of losing their IB program at their school. And next month, September's Hot Topics is Unidos, honoring Hispanic heritage and its rising influence. Please join us, and you will be able to register almost immediately, I believe. Yes, it's up, okay. Please complete our survey. We really do read and value your feedback, and we are adjourned. Thank you.